What's up, everybody? Today we're talking about Shinobu. I'm super excited for this figure review. This is one of my favorite figures in my whole collection. There are some slight problems and tweaks with this figure, but what I really like about this figure is the overall gentle demeanor and the quietness that it brings to my overall display shelf. What I really want to talk about is some of these other characteristics that aren't so nice, but then the qualities that are really, really nice. So the first thing I really want to touch on is, and probably the biggest, is the gap in her foot touching the base. As you can see in these photos, the pegs don't really go all the way in. It feels very difficult to force in, and I've noticed that it doesn't really fit. And also, this is not a thing that is just my figure exclusive. It's kind of been a problem with this figure across the board, but honestly, when you're looking at it from the front, you can't really tell and it looks fine. So there's that, and it doesn't really structurally compromise the figure in any way. So I don't think there's a problem like structurally with the figure, but I do think that it just doesn't feel nice when your pegs don't work all the way. The other stuff, staying on the foot, it looks weird. This pinky toe flaring out looks really, really awkward. I don't enjoy it. So that's another thing that kind of feels awkward. And then the hair seam at the very top between it, where it transitions from the front to back, is very noticeable. Again, only if you're looking at it from certain angles, but the fact that it's there to begin with, just, they could have done better for the price of this figure. Now, that's all of the stuff on the Shinobu figure that I really don't like. I just wanted to plow through it really, really fast because I want to harp on the things I really like about this figure. Before we get too far into talking about this figure though, let's talk about this box. Belfine did an okay job with this box. The color is a-okay. It's just got her name, a couple pictures, nothing too fancy. And since we were checking out this box, how about you check out that like and subscribe button? But back to the video. Starting again, base up, what I really like is the spire of blood and the translucent red base that she's on. It's really, really interesting, a really cool and simple design for Shinobu. And I just enjoy when a base is better than just a black or white base, and you know, it has some characteristic to it. This base really brings out a good color for her and adds a pop that otherwise wouldn't be there. The other things that I really enjoy about this figure are this nightgown is quite in the manga and the light novel series, right? It's translucent, and you can kind of see her skin through the nightgown. And so for me, this nightgown, being the color that it is and the way it's shaded with kind of this pinkish red undertone on the nightgown, really matches her skin tone and, you know, gives that illusion that you're seeing through the nightgown a little bit, which is really, really interesting. I love the cross braid on the front with the twine, I guess it would be. And the ribbon tie at the top and through the back with her hair. Like, again, sucker for really nice hair. And this figure, the way it flows and like sits, just really pretty. If it wasn't a giant seam line in the top, but otherwise the shading from like this blonde to the darker blonde at the tips, and also there's kind of this like metallic color to it, like this tinge of sparkle, which is really, really nice. I mean, she is a vampire, so you know, take it as you will. But I really like these accents that they put in here with the ribbon. And then overall, the best and most appropriate face for Shinobu. It is fantastic. The smugness of this face, just like looking down on you, is, I love it. I love like just this kind of like soft, degrading look that she's giving. This just like, really, you're looking at me type of face. Like, and it's so simple and it's kind of plain in, its overall expression. But what it makes you feel like is, it's valuable to have that, and I love it. And the other way this is a bittersweet, I would say, with the dress. Back to the dress, I just want to clarify one more point. The holes, the way they scrunched up some to make them smaller as like in some of the folds, and then stretched out others for when it's being flared, they did a good job some places and not others. As you can see in some of the B-roll, like some of the holes are just way too big for their spot, like structurally speaking on fabric, like it doesn't make any sense to have. But then in other spots, it makes complete sense and would be like correct as what you would see. So it's kind of this weird in between. But I really like her pose, and I really like how she extends so far outside of the baseline of the, the base, and on all ends really she extends out. And so that's really, really an interesting feature, because a lot of figures don't extend super far like that. I've not seen anything with lean or problems structurally with, like, her leg. So I think it's probably okay. It's not very heavy. So in that sense, I think we're probably going to see more lean from like this front leg being messed up with the pegs than we would from the back leg. But the way they did this figure in general is really, really nice. I love the flow. I love the size. And I love her expression overall. It's pretty, it's beautiful, and I think, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, that the quietness that this brings, because it's so like monochromatic and not so loud, right? It doesn't have a lot of big bright colors to draw your attention. It's not a huge elaborate motion, and there's a lot of the similar repeating colors thematically through this figure, that the shading's good, the coloring is good, and when you put it next to figures that are loud, this one really starts to stand out, and I really enjoy that. If you haven't checked out me talking about Merlin, Lady Avalon, in my last pre-order video, please do, because it has a very similar feel. And I feel that both of these figures in my collection would bring a nice rapport and just break it up, the monotony, right? When you have too much loud stuff in space, it all starts to blend together and nothing stands out on its own. But when you start to break it up with a figure like this that's quieter, more composed, kind of more monotone, all of a sudden it starts to stand out and break up that loud, exuberant forcefulness that some of the other figures that are very pretty and beautiful, but loud and forceful nonetheless. And so having a figure like this really starts to dictate the flow and ebb of your container, and your container, but your display case, right? You can really start to push the dialogue of what kind of spacing and characters you can have in a space like that by having a figure like this, which is something I really, really enjoy. I also really enjoy the Monogatari series, and with off-season and monster season coming out soon, I figured why not talk about Shinobu a little bit. I hope we get more of her. I really enjoy her, and I think that this figure in general is not a bad figure at all, but it does have some problems, and if you're willing to weigh those problems and run the risk of potentially maybe some lean or the pegs not fitting all the way, this figure isn't perfect, but it is good. And so that would be my critique of this figure overall. Would I have bought this figure again, knowing what I know now about it? Yeah, probably, because I really like the series, but I feel like if you're not a huge fan of the Monogatari series, then maybe this figure is not for you. But I definitely understand why you would like this or wouldn't like this figure, depending on your palette scheme, what you're trying to push, and if you like this type of figure, and if you like the series, right? These are all things to weigh. But I would say that unless you're really into the Monogatari series, this figure is probably not the best. There are other Shinobu figures that are way better. I'm going to show one off in a couple weeks. And I'm super excited to do that detailed one because, like, ooh, it's awesome. And this one just feels okay when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, and that's kind of depressing. So enough yapping. I think I've kind of covered everything I really wanted to on this figure. Again, the highlights, the face, the dress, the monochromatic, the base, the things I disliked, the foot going into the peg looking weird, and the hairline being real ugly. So overall, okay figure, but that's about it. As always though, check out this video if you would like to support me, and as always, you're cool.